in living life is not in never falling, but in rising every time we fall. So, with this thought, I welcome you all to the event of NCL Technology and Entrepreneurship Club event, Kickstart event, that is Scientific Entrepreneurship, the Innovator Stories. Prior to the beginning, let me introduce you to the club Technology and Entrepreneurship. TEC is a club which aims to be a platform where we celebrate the sparkling relation of science and technology. We cultivate the science technology relationship to get an understanding of how our laboratory work could be applied to create a real life breakthroughs. This is a club driven by us, the research scholars and associates at NCL, with shared interest in technology and more into its translation to the products and services useful to the people. Having a history of 14 years, the take was started with the talk by very famous global specialist of research commercialization, Dr. David Sesher. Fast forward to 2019, the club conducted quite exciting and useful activities, which includes the workshop on skill development, the workshop on resume writing by eminent experts, the entrepreneur's talk by Dr. Khandare, a thrilling industrial visit to Viswa laboratories, and a successful publication of a booklet containing research scholars' profile. And then COVID hit us. Nevertheless, we are happy to be back with the today's event, which marks the beginning of the activities of TEC for this year. The event, Scientific Entrepreneurship, the Innovator Stories, will begin with the address of our Honorable Director, Dr. Ashish Lele sir, followed by an interactive session with an exemplary personality, Dr. Premnath Venugopalan, about scientific entrepreneurship, which will take us to the exciting panel discussion with seasoned entrepreneurs. With the seasoned entrepreneurs, so Hemant, is sir there?
No, not right now.
Spurti, till
Yes,
then,
ma'am.
maybe you can also introduce the new office bearers for NCLTC group.
Okay, ma'am. Sure.
Spurti, Dr. Lele has joined. Maybe you need to make him the presenter so that he can unmute.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Thank you very much. Hello, friends. So, without further delay, let us start the celebration. We have, we are very fortunate to have with us Dr. Ashish Lele, Director CSR NCL, who is not only a dynamic leader and a renowned scientist, but also a proactive entrepreneur with 2 successful startups on his name. With this short introduction, I request Ashish sir to speak few words and declare TEC open for all. Over to you, sir.
Okay, thank you, Spurti. First of all, just a small correction. I have been involved in creating one company, and I have been more or less like a somebody who has helped create the other one, but the other one, which is based on silk materials, is really driven by Anuya, who I think might be on the call today. So you can credit me with one company, not two. Okay, just to get the facts straight. Great. So good morning to all of you, and I am absolutely delighted that the TEC has restarted. We've had an unfortunate long spell of inactivity, but I'm absolutely happy that there is now enough enthusiasm amongst all of you to restart this very important activity. I think this is the right time to get things started. Uh, I- Let me just reiterate a few things that I have been saying on multiple forums, including on the Foundation Day. Uh, uh, Two, three things. First is that we are all citizens of NCL, of CSR NCL, and which intrinsically means that we have the passion to not just do the best of science, but also take it forward to as far as possible closer to commercialization, closer to the market. That is part of our charter, that is part of our DNA, and we must never forget that. Okay, we are not just a university where we are okay to do just our research and publish it or patent and forget about it. That's not our DNA. And this is something that we must keep in mind. It is not a trivial thing, not worth forgetting, certainly. So we are here in the business of doing great science and also translating the science to technology and taking the technology as far as possible to the closer to the market. Okay. And there are multiple ways that one can do this, of course. The conventional ways that we have practiced in the past have been licensing our technologies to smaller companies or bigger companies, right? But 15 years ago, NCL created a wave, I would say, a revolution in India by venturing out and creating the Venture Center, which is today India's one of the best incubators. And that was something that NCL started 15 years ago with the clear intention and the vision that in the future, uh, startups is going to be another very important vehicle for successful translation and commercialization of technology. Uh, I think we've had some extremely visionary leaders who saw this up early, and thanks to their vision, we are today at a point of time where if you have to be at the right place and the right time, and this is Venture Center today is that. I think a combination of NCL and Venture Center is one of those rare things where you are at the right time at the right place. Okay, so all of you uh, must consider yourself to be extremely lucky that you are in this point of history at the right time and the right place, because what was created 15 years ago is today one of the most, uh, uh, I would say, the brightest path ahead for commercialization of science, commercialization of technology. And I say this because I feel that things have changed in the last 2-3 decades of how science was translated into technology and how technology was being commercialized. In the past, as I said, we used to license our technologies to companies, and then companies used to scale them up, and companies used to commercialize those technologies. That was because in those days, industry had some appetite to do uh, some part of the R&D. Okay, there are various shades of R&D. There is something more close to R and there is something more close to D, and industries at least had the appetite to do some development, so do R&D closer to D in those days. Today things have changed. I think industries, especially the bigger industries, uh, increasingly do not have the risk appetite for doing real R&D. Okay, certainly very few industries do the R part of it, and not many industries do the D part of it. And in fact, what the industries do today is they keep looking out for small startups, and when they see uh, a startup that is worth taking over, who has which has managed to de-risk the technology to a certain extent, they will just buy them out. Okay, so why I'm saying this is that today things are different because startups are becoming a vehicle to take technologies from laboratory to semi-commercial or a commercial scale, and many of them then take it forward by themselves, or many of them find an exit route, which means they sell out. Okay, and the large companies are there to buy them out. This kind of scenario did not exist very much, at least in India, maybe 20 years ago. But now it is very much there, and I think this is something that young people like you must keep in mind. Startups is a vehicle to do this translation from science to marketplace. Uh, Startups are basically companies which are created out of pure passion. You know, there are young people like you who feel that science must reach uh, its logical end. It must reach a place where it starts making impact, and impact can be quantified in multiple ways. I don't want to get into that, but this passion for translating science and creating a quantifiable impact and doing that extremely passionately is one of the most important things that an entrepreneur does. That passion is very, very, very important. The second is the ability to persevere, because converting science into technology is not an easy thing. It can't be done by just anybody, right? It requires a huge amount of patience. It requires guts. It requires complete self-belief that I can do this. Okay, and startups and entrepreneurs are basically have that, right? So it's the passion and the perseverance to do this. These are very, very important traits of a startup, and the younger you are, the more you have these, right? And that's why uh, this is where young people like you must will have to play a big role. Startups are also, from a national perspective, is a vehicle to create jobs. Instead of you going and seeking jobs outside, by creating startups which are successful, you actually create opportunities for jobs for others, right? So instead of seeking jobs, you become the creator of jobs, and this is going to be so much important for India, because there are only a few blue collar jobs or white collar jobs available today. Uh, you We are producing far more scientists and science students and engineers than the number of jobs that are available. So it is imperative that many of our young science students and engineers uh, must actually create the opportunities for new jobs. So this is something again that you guys need to keep in mind. And it is important I'm saying it because when you start thinking of your own career, this is an important part of your thinking process. There are many things that you need to learn to know what a startup does, and I think becoming part of the TEC is a it gives you the opportunity to learn many of those things. Some of them can be taught in formal courses. Whenever ACSIR realizes it, maybe such courses will be introduced, but many of them will have to be learned on the job. Okay, and when you learn on the job, you need a mentor to tell you how to do things, what not to do, and that is where having venture center close by and having fantastic people like the whole venture center team, of course guided by a remarkable leader in Dr. Premnath, is something that you should feel very lucky about, right? That you have the right mentors, the right ecosystem for you to learn what it takes to make a startup. How do you make it? What all things you need to learn to become an entrepreneur, right? So you have it right next doors to you. So this is a great opportunity for all of you. I'm very happy that we are close to 90 people here I see on this call. I hope this kind of excitement continues. And those of you who are really on entrepreneur material will hopefully in the next year and year after that uh, this 92 will not come down but grow. Let's see how much sustenance you have. So make full use of this opportunity. I must formally thank Premnath and his whole team at Venture Center to find time to engage with you and help you with understanding all of this. So Thanks, Premnath. And all of you students must also make the most use of it because they are putting a lot of time and effort into this. So please make the most of this opportunity. So with that, I will not belabor this point again. And I think Spurti, you wanted me to declare that the website for the TC is open and that students can join the TC from today, right, Spurti?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Great.
Thank you. Thank
Okay.
you.
So I formally declare it open and all the best to all of you. I will make sure that I keep track on how the TC is developing and how it is growing. And I hope that this flower blooms even further. I look forward to that. So thank you very much, Spurti. Over to you.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Thank you. Thank you very much, sir. And definitely, I would say that we'll make use of most, we'll make it most of being at right time and at right place, and we'll try to contribute more to the NCL's vision and also ultimately to the betterment of society. And we'll really try to uh, make TEC a successful club this year. Thank you, sir. Thank you for inspiring us. So, as declared by Sir, the website and the club is now open, and we request everyone to go through the website. And interested people can become TEC member by simply filling the form and paying a nominal fee. Moving ahead to the next exciting part of the morning, I request Sonali to take over. Sonali, over to you.
Thank you, Spurti. Dear all, we have here with us an eminent personality, Dr. Premnath Venugopalan, the head of NCL Innovations, which is a group within NCL charged with the responsibility of championing the cause of technology innovation within NCL. Dr. Premnath holds BTech from IIT Bombay and a PhD from MIT USA. He has been championing technology enterprise with the Center for Scientific Enterprises, London Business School, and Cambridge University, UK. Dr. Premnath is a scientist at core, working in Polymer Science and Engineering Division with more interest in technology development for biomedical products. He is a founding director of a very successful technology business incubator on NCL campus, that is Venture Center. He brings with him considerable experience in technology development and commercialization and an experience of working with startups in UK and India. He is also engaged with large corporations working on research and has also consulted the research projects as project leader. With this introduction, I invite Dr. Premnath to introduce us to scientific entrepreneurship. Meanwhile, I request participants to put up their questions in the chat box. Over to you, sir.
Okay, good morning, everybody. Can you hear me and can you see the slides?
Yes, sir, we can hear you and slides are visible.
Okay, great. So let's get started. I think our panel starts at 12, right? So am I right?
Yes, sir. Yes,
So
sir.
I should
At
finish
12.
before that. So please alert me 5 minutes before 12. Okay.
Okay, sir.
Okay, so
Yes,
let's
sir.
get started. Thank you very much. Happy to see that Smruti and her team have got this off the ground again. I think this is probably the 5th generation of executive committee members. Of course, Smruti, you need to introduce your committee members maybe in between after I finish. Is it okay? Okay, so let's get started. I'm
Yes,
going to
sir.
talk a little bit about scientific entrepreneurship. I was told to keep it simple and explain what is involved in entrepreneurship and what entrepreneurship is about. The real, I mean, it's all at the end of the day, it's all about doing, and that you will hear from the panel of 4 young startup entrepreneurs, which will follow. And I'm not going to talk about them here, so you'll get to hear about them clearly as well. So let's get going. First of all, um, yes, okay. So this is the new website. Shruti didn't put it up. So I had a moment to quickly do this. The address is registercenter.co.in/NCLTEC, and please do visit that website as well. Thank you, Ashish, for supporting this and also making it all this happen. When we got this going in way back in 2008, it was very clear that this is going to be the very important technology on Entrepreneurship Club. Of course, this is something which is a voluntary activity which the students are driving, and I'm happy that this is taking shape once again despite COVID still continuing. By the way, there's a talk coming up on 20th January by Professor Langer. Please do attend this. He is referred to as the Edison of medicine in some quarters. Uh, Primarily one of the founders of co-founders of Moderna, especially if some of you are aware, the lipid nanoparticle technology, which is used for delivery of the mRNA vaccines, is something which Dr. Professor Langer has spent many years working on, especially these controlled delivery systems. Of course, there are many others who contributed to that activity as well, and it will be a good opportunity to learn from him and hear from him. He's a founder of 40 plus startups, and he has an interesting story where when he started his activities, people didn't think the kind of work he was doing was core to chemical engineering, nor was it something which they thought would make it very big. But he had this vision of what this field is going to be about or what is possible, and he has shaped it all through his career. Today, being the preeminent person in this field, probably the only prize that has evaded him so far is the Nobel Prize. Other than that, I think he has probably had all the glories of the world as well. But more importantly, he's a great teacher and a person who really mentors his students very well. So it's worth listening to this, please. Going from there to another very popular entrepreneur in the student circuit is Elon Musk, right? So when I wanted to bring this up as an example of somebody who, today in today's world represents entrepreneurship in more than one ways and inspires generations of youngsters. If you look at just 10 years back, his ambition of sending rockets to space seemed impossible. And many of us would think that this is something only governments could do. NASA could do it, ISRO could do it, not something which private enterprise would do. If you were doing it, would there be a business opportunity there? He could imagine it, convey that story to people, raise money for it, make it happen. Of course, all the pains and problems and all of those must have accompanied that. There was almost a time when SpaceX was about to close down. But now, of course, you can see that they are sending commercial payloads to space and in ways which you would have never imagined. So one of the things I wanted to bring about is entrepreneurship invariably is about looking at the future and looking at future opportunities. It is not about necessarily today's opportunities. It is about future opportunities. And very often, most entrepreneurs you will find are looking ahead into things which they wish, which they imagine is possible, and the rest of the world very often thinks that they are fools. Okay, they think that this is not going to happen, or this is a long shot, not worth their time, and so on and so forth. But these are people who are willing to look ahead into the future. And in this aspect, they are different from conventional businesses, because conventional businesses are very often pursuing immediate interests. So you can also imagine that if you were to necessarily do a market research today, or at the time when SpaceX was getting started, that may or may not have come up as an area which people should be focusing on. So entrepreneurship is a type of activity which is forward looking, and that aligns very well with the orientation of a scientist. And that's why scientists and engineers, in my opinion, should explore entrepreneurship as much as possible to the extent that they are comfortable with, and see how that can be used to take their ideas to fruition. Of course, it is not an easy journey. Here is another example from India, right? Um, uh, uh, you're all heard of the Bharat Biotech story and the Covaxin and Dr. Krishna Ella, who is seen in the picture here. You can, um, uh, when he started, came back to start the vaccine in business, this Bharat Biotech, probably that was also very difficult times. There were, of course, precursors to him. People like Shanta Biotech had already begun, but these were all the pioneers who came in to do some of these things. Today, the fact that they are playing a central role in society is something which, at that time may or may not have been thought about. And also, people might have also talked about how the initial technologies they were developing were probably something which has already been done in the West, and therefore not necessarily the most cutting edge science at that time. But that said, you can see who is having impact, who is visible, who is being talked about, who the society will be grateful to, and at the end of the day, who are creating institutions for the country, right? So it's, I think, all written right. I mean, it's all visible and obvious of what is possible for the brave who go in this direction. Of course, this is in COVID times, all of these are relevant. But of course, there are several startups and spin-outs from NCL as well. I'll briefly touch upon them as well. You'll hear some of them. But it is possible from NCL as well. There is more. I will show you. There is some alumni startups other than these as well. So it's not remote. It is not only about Krishna Ella or Elon Musk. It is about people around you who are doing some of these startups, scientists, students, and so on and so forth. So I think it's an opportunity which is not so distant. It is not something to imagine as something which only superhumans do, but people like you and me who could be doing this as well. Here is something which has come in the news right now, right? This is a venture center startup, My Lab, which you hear and see in the news today. But just before COVID, there was hardly any interest in this particular company. They were trying to make ends meet with their trading business, which also involves a lot of supplies and so on and so forth. Quite honestly, the way they rose to the occasion was surprising to me as well. And we were fortunate that we were able to help them with considerable support, with especially their multi. Their certain categories of their tests, which they built just in the early parts of COVID. So here, examples from Pune, right near you, of companies which are shaping up. By the way, I wouldn't be surprised if this is probably the first, becomes one day the first unicorn in the medtech space from India. When I say medtech, truly medtech, not the pharmacy kind of guys, but this guys who are making products. Here is another Pune company. Can anybody recognize any of this? Anybody wants to hazard a guess? This is not as well known, but what you're seeing is a ventilator, right? Anybody wants to write on the chat box who that is, which company this is? Anybody familiar with the names? Probably not. Everybody is quiet, so I don't see any response in the chat box. Um, Any responses? Okay, not yet. So I presume people haven't heard about it, but this is Noka Robotics, again based in Pune. Okay, IIT Kanpur alumni who migrated their business, pivoted to make this during COVID in record time and with very high quality. So these are the kind of things which are possible, as well, as long as you're determined, you're keen to build some of these things as we go along. Here is one more. And this is another venture center startup. Do you see this plant? This is just outskirts of Pune in Talegaon. And this is Nobel Exchange's plant, which processes organic waste from the city and converts it into bio-CNG and supplies it through IOCL for some of the buses, PMT buses that you see around in the city as well. A very difficult sector to be in, has to deal with the local government, a lot of different challenges, but you can see that it is a visionary effort started when nobody else was doing it, the first one at this scale demonstrating it for the whole city. And today when cities are all reeling with a waste problem, you have a role model there. And then the government also goes ahead and announces a national program called Satat to replicate these kind of models all over the country in different cities, so that waste doesn't pile up and ruin our countrysides, which basically are accommodating the privileges which our urban society has taken for granted of throwing waste into their backyards. Okay. Okay. So here are, these were some examples. So now let me come down to the basics of a few principles, and then we'll take it ahead from there. I thought I should first give you some examples so that you can relate to it, and then we can take it ahead from there as well. So here is a short introduction of what I'll talk. I'll talk a little bit about business, a little bit about science, technology, invention, science-led entrepreneurship, and a few lessons for all of you as well. Every business, no matter what, including the ones which are not necessarily entrepreneurial, the ones in the corner shops, the small traders, and so on and so forth, all of them solve a problem or meet an unmet need. So central to every business is solving a problem. So you have to have somebody who has a need, you're solving that problem, and because you're solving that problem, there is a revenue model around it. Somebody is willing to pay for it because of that, and that whatever that you're earning is funding its cost and growth over a period of time. Now, of course, there can be a period where you are investing and you're waiting for a point where your income exceeds expenditure and therefore you become profitable over a period of time. But that varies from business to business. In some places, you invest a lot more. It turns positive after some time. In some places, it takes shorter periods of time. And how do you fund that? And that is funded primarily through investments. Investments. The red that you go into in the beginning is funded through investments. And if the investments are very risky and people are not willing to come, sometimes to encourage all of that, organizations like the government step in order to plug in some of that risk, so that the risk is reduced, the investors are finding it more attractive and are willing to come in as well. That is the general principle in which all businesses operate. You'll often find that all businesses have a productive engine central to it. You'll find that all businesses take in some resources and put out some value added products and services. And there's a value addition process that is happening. I'm starting with business and not science and technology intentionally, so that you understand the concept, and then we can talk about how science fits in. So if you think of a factory, you take some raw materials, produce some end products. That's the simplest way to think about it. But even service companies like Infosys are engines, right? You take people in, you take some methods, software, all of that in, and then finally produce something out, which might be a customized solution for a given customer. So all businesses, irrespective of size, have these as common features. So the idea for every entrepreneur is to build that productive engine over a period of time. When you look at a business, another way of looking at it is how it progresses over time. So if you look, this is an x-axis here is time and the y-axis is money, for example. By the way, there can be other y-axis, but the first y-axis for every business is money, because you have to be sustainable at the end of the day. You will find that every business starts off with some investment, and then at the end there is a reward. And here you are seeing that the gray area under the curve, which is a reward, has to exceed the investment that you're putting in. Otherwise, it's not worth doing, right? So some kind of reward that ends up coming is getting exceeded. That is why people are participating in it, right? And that reward can also be intangibles, by the way. There can be impact and so on and so forth, as I will tell you. But that said, the primary concept here is that the reward needs to exceed the investment that is being put in. In some places, if you're taking very high risk, that means this dark gray area below is very deep. That means it's very large, or it takes a lot of time, so it's more risky. You expect that the rewards also will be proportionately higher. So the rewards will have to be higher for the investors to be attracted in. A typical business person uh, tends to first write a story of how this graph will look. That means what you're trying to say is, I expect that I can run the business in a way that the graph will look like this. If the graph was to look very small out here, it would not be interesting. If it was to be right out there, people will ask you to explain why you think it is there. So your predictability of that becomes important, right? So how certainly can you predict that the business will go there is all about preparation, about conceptualization, visualization, planning, all of that that you do for your business. So every business person, invariably entrepreneur, has to be a good storyteller of this curve, in the sense they have to know, they have to anticipate, they have to plan, they have to think through how things will evolve over a period of time. And they are not necessarily promising that, they are saying that this is the likelihood that this will happen with a certain risk, and because the risk is there, there is a proportionately higher return. So people who are coming in understand that there is going to be risk. If they're not running away from risk, they are only agreeing to accept certain risks. They're going to manage that risks in that business as well. This time to positive cash flow varies from industry to industry. In certain industries like IT, you can get to it very quickly, but you also depth might be low of the whole. So if that is the case, you would expect that a lot of people will pursue that, and therefore there'll be a lot of competition. If it is, on the other hand, biotech or pharma, you expect that this depth of hole that's shown here will be much higher. You'll invest a lot more. It'll take longer to get out of that, and then proportionately you expect the rewards also to be higher. So in pharma, if you're investing, you expect that the rewards should also be sufficiently high in order to justify that effort that you're putting in right upfront as well. And the story that you're telling depends a lot on all the risks that will make the story uncertain. Will your regulations make it possible to take a product to market? Is that a risk? Do you have all the capabilities? Do you have all the technologies? Do you have all the supporting facilities? Do you have money in the ecosystem to support you? All these will make your prediction of the graph uncertain, and that is what an investor needs, and an entrepreneur needs to learn to manage along the way as you go along, right? So it's all about telling this story. Investor asks you, how much is the investment, what is the potential reward, and how reliable is your story, right? And that's what every entrepreneur has to answer. There is a class of enterprises called social enterprises, and in these enterprises there are other y-axes. uh, so, and I've just listed it as impact, but it could be environmental impact, it could be jobs, it could be health, number of lives saved, all of those. But none of this is of any use if your first axis is not stable. If the money is not stable, you cannot talk about the rest. So if you're doing that, then you might be talking about a not-for-profit organization, right? That's not the purpose here. What you're talking about here is a social enterprise, which is an entrepreneurial business, one that will eventually sustain itself, but has other impact, right? So an example of this is Amul, for example. So many of you may not realize Amul is a for-profit company. Okay, it makes profits. It distributes its profits to its shareholders or all the dairy farmers in that area, and they have gained tremendously from Amul. At the same time, there are lots of people like you and me who are getting benefit of the products which are available at reasonable prices. There's a lot of ecosystem that has come around it, which has helped create jobs for many people as well. And that is something which is inspiring to many people. Many of us would like to do it. So social entrepreneurship is a class of entrepreneurship where you end up looking at other axes, so you have to justify the other axes as well. Some of you may want to read this book, this biography of Verghese Kurian, founder of Amul, one of the founders of Amul, called I Too Had a Dream. So it's I think it should be available in the library. It's definitely available in the Venture Center library. Now let's talk about entrepreneurial businesses. Now entrepreneurial businesses are a type of business. Okay, these are what you commonly called as startups, right? They are, by the way, not the conventional small and micro and enterprises that you talk about. You'll typically find that the micro small enterprises have a slight difference. One is the innovation capacity is very often not built into that organization. They don't necessarily look at future opportunities, right? Entrepreneurial businesses are different in that aspect. What they are looking at is a future opportunity. So foresight is very key to an entrepreneurial business. And because it is the future and everything is uncertain in the future, and it is something which you are saying that you can shape the future, hopefully you will have a way to shape that future, right? And that basically is a solution to make that happen. And that solution is essentially the backdrop in which the innovation exists, right? So innovation is essentially a solution to a problem. It could be a business process innovation or a technical innovation, which you call an invention, for example, right? And this is very key to most startups of any kind that you talk about. So there is a future opportunity and there is a solution you are proposing, which is essentially something which has to be innovative, because if it was not, that problem might have been solved already, right? So you're looking at a new way of solving that problem, right? Um, and because it is something which is futuristic, you'll often find that the opportunity is small when you are looking at it, and a lot of people around you will think that it is small. It is not something which the crowd moves to. So today, for example, if you look at it, the crowd will be, in few years back, the whole crowd was moving towards IT, right? Even NCL project assistants taking jobs in the IT industry. That was the crowd moving together. There might be some who might have taken the leap in a different direction and built something out, like maybe the founders of my lab or whatever it is. Now, that is invariably the case that every entrepreneurial startup, when it starts, the entrepreneur is one among very few people who believe in the vision and the opportunity, and everybody else is skeptical. And usually there are a lot of people who will tell you you're fools. Your parents might tell you that you're going on the wrong direction because that is not hip right now, that's not the hot area. All of that is very, very likely, right? Because you also imagine, if the big companies were pursuing the same idea, you would be squeezed out of it. So usually the big companies step in much later when everything falls into place, because they are looking at much larger opportunities. So if you take Reliance, for example, their first premise to you, if you go and join them, would be, does this opportunity represent a $1 billion EBITDA for the company? That means earnings for the company, which basically means they're looking at big opportunities. They are not necessarily going to look at hydrogen, say 10 years back or 15 years back, which when NCL started that work, right? That was not in their horizon. They will come to it much later. But if they had come to it then, NCL would not have probably would have got squeezed out, or would have been a partner to their activities in a small way, so to say. So it is, entrepreneurial opportunities have to be spotted early, and they will be small. Another example of this is that uh, if you look at, say, for example, the IT industry, two people bet their life on the great opportunity that personal computers represented many years ago, compared to, say, mainframe computers. So IBM was a king in the of that era, and they thought that mainframe computers would be the big thing. There were two companies which decided that it's not going to be mainframe, it's going to be personal computers. And IBM, thought it was a joke, right? That there will be very few small markets available to for personal computers. Those two companies were, on the hardware side, it was Apple. On the software side, it was Microsoft, right? Both betting on it. Today, they are in the top of the world in terms of their market valuations. And both these entrepreneurs had the courage to step out and do it, right? In fact, Gates left an opportunity to get a degree from Harvard in order to pursue that opportunity. So you can imagine how convinced he might have been to pursue it, right? So this is what is the story of most entrepreneurs, including Elon Musk, for example. Even today, people think he's crazy, right? There are many people who will tell you that as well. Another characteristic is that the opportunities very often much larger than the resources at hand. So an entrepreneur doesn't say that I have this much money, what can I do with it? Entrepreneurial thinking is that I want to do this, how do I get the resources to make it happen? Right? So gathering resources is key to entrepreneurial activities. You can imagine, say, SpaceX taking off, just building a rocket must be so much money, right? How do you raise that money? I mean, you have to go and raise it. It's not going to be some rich uncle funding you all the time to do that, right? That's not ideal. So raising money and gathering resources are very key. And therefore, most entrepreneurial businesses have investment plans, in the sense they have business plans to raise money. Okay. And these are also very central to most entrepreneurial businesses. Okay. Okay, I think I've spent time on this, so I will rush a little bit on the rest of it. So innovation, as I told you, has two types of innovation. One is technical novelty and the other is organizational novelty. And remember, innovation doesn't happen until it is introduced in the market. Okay, this is the formal definition by a very famous economist called Schumpeter, that innovation is a market introduction of a technical or organizational novelty, not just its invention. So technical novelty example is, say, the BioNTech vaccine, right? And organizational novelty, for example, is Uber, which basically changed the way the business is done. It uses technology, but there's no invention there, which is technical invention. It is only how they move around the business and at the core of it. Now, of course, they must be filing patents as well, right? So quickly, just coming back to this, every technology basically also consists of a problem and a solution. That is the essence of any technology idea. As scientists, we tend to explore problems or create toolkits for solutions. And when you put the two together, you have a technology. And when the technology is novel in any way, either because you have identified a new way of looking at the problem, maybe a target for a disease or a solution to solve that problem, you have an invention. Okay, so invention is merely a novel to the world technology. As scientists, sometimes we only explore problems or explore the toolkits. Sometimes we may connect the two, but we may not necessarily do that. So that's what technologists do. And when I say technologists, I don't mean a degree. I mean a person with that orientation. So, for example, Dr. Sivram is a person trained in science, but an excellent technologist. He knows how to connect the dots. Okay, so it has not got to do with training. It's got to do with orientation of how you put things together, how you're able to connect. And you'll realize that this connecting can happen across generations. The solution may have been built 20 years ago, and you come now and connect it to a given problem which has just been unraveled very recently, or it has happened recently. For example, COVID, as I will tell you, you find out about COVID right now. Solutions might have been discovered many years ago, which you're deploying right now. So somebody has to connect the dots over there. So the connecting the dots is a very important activity in technology development, and it is not something which you can cultivate, but it is not something that everybody does. And many of you as students might want to cultivate that habit of connecting the dots, right? And you're in a good position to do it because you are continuously pouring through the literature to understand new ways problems have been understood and new solutions that have been built around the world. So in people trained in the sciences are ideally positioned to look at technology in whichever way, in sciences and engineering, okay, and medicine for that matter, because medicine also you're unraveling problem definitions very quickly in many ways. You might be having unique ways of looking at problems. So all of these disciplines in the sciences have a unique edge in technology. But by the way, it's not a prerogative of only of scientists. Okay, even a person, a cook, who makes the best idli batter has great technology. Okay, so please don't confuse that. That is not, so technology can be done by anybody who understands a problem and solves it with some solutions. Science is one vehicle to come to the solution, right? Now, whenever technology development happens in places like NCL, what we do is we try to connect the problem and solutions and together and come up with a technology idea or an opportunity. Maybe do some proof of concepts, and this is where much of the work in NCL stops. Okay, some of it stops at the problem understanding, some of it stops at solution. You might publish it and so on and so forth. Some of you take it to technology, and some more will take it to a proof of concept, right? Very occasionally we end up taking it in that direction, for the reason that actually a lot of hard work and time actually goes in the second part of this line of work, and it is not as exciting in terms of, for a person who is looking at a challenge every day, or a not a challenge, let's say curiosity driven activity every day. The early part of invention sounds more exciting. Okay, that's the orientation of a typical scientist in NCR. So we tend to work here, and this rest of it seems either boring, mundane, or so on and so forth. Now you'll also note that any product in use, you want it to make it boring, right? You don't want it to give you surprises every day. So just as an example, think of an aeroplane you're flying, right? You want the aeroplane to be as boring as possible, because you every day are going to fly that aeroplane. You don't want it to do a roller coaster ride on you and give you the scare of your life, right? Now, so you don't want a new experiment happening on, say, a Boeing that you're going to fly with 150 people. That is not acceptable, right? So the whole act in the later part of the story is intended to make it as reliable, as boring as possible. And that requires an orientation where your commitment is to the end product and user and impact that you will have, and not necessarily to the excitement of publishing a paper and finding out some discovery, in the very beginning. So while these two go hand in hand, the orientations are slightly different. Okay, and that is important to keep in mind. So the you might, in NCL kind of places, one option is that you can develop it this far, and then you wait for industry to come to you and accept those ideas and to work on the rest of it. And hopefully they are motivated enough to do all the hard work and the investment that is needed to take it ahead and to scale it up, because there is a reward at the end in terms of money and so on and so forth, or what the company for new product line for the company. But increasingly, and by the way, NCL has stories of that, right? We have success stories of that has happened in many different fields of different types. These two products from Procter and Gamble have NCL technology. This product, for example, half of the world's these big bottles have NCL's molecule in it, a process which makes that molecule in it, and so many others. And this from our biochemical sciences, double the income of shepherds and so on, which is great, right? And it does work sometimes, right? But very often it doesn't, and increasingly we find that it doesn't. So what do you do if you're a person who's content working on the left side of this chain and happy to leave it there? That's up to you. But if you want to see it in use, product in use, to make an impact on people's life, you have to find a way to build the rest of the pipeline. Okay, and that gap is the biggest pain point for most of the people translating technology. So there are differences in the interests, motivations, expectations. There are differences there, there are different levels of trust, the trust deficits between the two parties, and so on and so forth. So one way to, there are multiple ways you can solve this problem, and people have come up with multiple ways to do it. One of them happens to be entrepreneurship, and entrepreneurship is one of those vehicles which basically helps deliver innovations in a sustainable and scalable manner. As I told you, this part of the work involves most of the money and the time and the work, which means that you have to bring in a lot of money resources. Let's say a project in NCL is funded to the extent of 1 crore. If you want to bring in, say, 100 crores to make it happen, nobody is going to give NCL that money. Okay, and that's where you need ways to incentivize all the parties who are going to deliver it in one vehicle, and that vehicle will invariably be a company. Okay, you cannot have any other vehicle of any kind. It could be a large company, they are willing to come, but it could be an entrepreneurial entity as well. And I say entrepreneurial because we're talking about future products, future industries of the country. Things we are building are
Sorry to
essentially
interrupt
for
in
the
between,
future.
sir.
Yeah.
We have 5 more
Uh,
minutes left.
yeah, sure. Okay, so that as a vehicle to deliver innovations is something very important to your think. I mean, I would like to suggest that you think about startups in that context. And of course, very important to that is your ability to think from the endpoint, right? You, entrepreneurs invariably think about what they can deliver at the end of the day. It is not the excitement in the early part of the journey, but the end point that is very crucial. And they have to communicate the story and the potential of the end point to everybody as they go along. Okay, so I think what I will do is I'll just talk briefly about, so just a little bit about science-based deep tech startups. These are class of deep tech startups. As you can imagine, the solution part of the solution leverages the specialized know-how when you talk about deep tech science-based startups. The foresight leverages scientific insights. So you might come to it early because you have seen a lot more. And innovation is based on technical novelty. Okay, and of course, a large difference in how you resource a pharma company versus an IT company, and so on and so forth. Today, there are a lot of role models for this, including Nobel Prize winners. All of them have companies. I won't spend time on this, but these are very common names for you now. Uh, and these are all people who have built startups, and it is not something which I'm talking about which is only which is uncommon. It is very common now. Okay. When Oxford talks about its success stories, this is a graph that they show of spin-outs from Oxford. You can see the sheer number of it and how the organization is investing deeply in these as well. And India also has a tradition. So there is a long history of scientific entrepreneurship, and we should not forget that. It's not something which only happens in the West, it has happened in India. And all of these companies here are all examples of that as well. And Venture Center also has several to showcase, and I've talked about a couple of them. NCL also several, which I've talked about them as well. I just want to show you this again later. So by the way, that said, it is difficult, right? So why do people do it, and why? What is the excitement behind it? One is just the satisfaction of empowering people with solutions. So people who are committed to the end point are not satisfied with intermediate results. They need to see the end result, and that is something which many of you as scientists and engineers, when you signed up to be scientists and engineers, may have that in the back of your mind. That's a different matter that in the time being you might have some intermediate results to show, but eventually you want to be of use to society, right? And many of your role models are of those kind. Also, the ability to transform economies and societies, right? So in the US, for example, the East and the West Coast are all powered by such engines of science and engineering, right? And there's no doubt that scientists can contribute in large measure to transforming the economy as well. And at the end of the day, all work that happens in NCL has to be funded through either profits or through taxes. And both of them, even taxes, depend upon profits. If there was no profits, there would be no taxes. So if you don't have any way of converting innovation into business, ideas into business, you would not have any money to pursue science. Okay, and that is a given. So so there's no other way than doing this, and that should be very clear to most people as well. I'll take a last few slides to just close on it. Lessons to all of you: be dissatisfied. Essence of being developing inventions is being dissatisfied with the world around you. Many of you try to give solutions to problems posed to you, but it's important to also ask important questions. Okay, and that is very often not taught to you. You have to do it. And unfortunately, in many PhDs, I find that professors or scientists give the problem to the student. It's a good idea if you can develop your own problem definitions. Okay, please consider doing that. That's very useful in life. And have a beginner's mind where you don't shoot down ideas too soon. It's important to allow some ideas to flourish however crazy they look, and then see how it shapes up before taking a view on it, and not necessarily being too excited or too hasty in doing it. And creativity is something which is is not necessarily something which comes out on its own. It is something which you have to develop over a period of time, and it's something which is natural to some people. So you need to build teams very often to bring creative people into this. In these three charts, all the dots are the same. The last one, somebody has seen a cat in it. Now that person is somebody who should be in my team, if that is my goal, of seeing patterns in dots, right? This is I recommend all of you should read this article on mRNA vaccines in Nature, which came out in October, I think. Okay, it's a good storyline. Important thing I want to point out here is that if you look at the mRNA vaccine story, you will find that there is a line of work starting from 1960 on mRNA. There's a line of work on lipid-based delivery systems, and somebody combining the two at a later stage. If this did not happen, none of this would have happened. So the science is very important to happen there. But somebody was watching the science, right? So a very important development happened somewhere in the 90s and 2000s, where people decided it's worth creating a company around mRNA technologies. So CureVac was formed in around 2000, and a very important discovery, which may win the Nobel Prize soon, is this, which was the modified RNA, which evades immune detection. And soon after that, somebody noticed two sets of people noticed that there was an opportunity for creating BioNTech and Moderna. And this happened in 2005, and they've been working at it. And nobody cared about them till about 2020, right? 2019. And then all of a sudden, they are the biggest stories around. So it's quite important to understand the tangled nature of science. That means that you have to, ideas come from other disciplines, and you have to keep a watch on it. This was the domain, middle column was the domain of Professor Langer. Somebody else was looking at this. They combined the two, right? And that is what shapes science and technology very often. The very tangled nature of how innovation takes place. Okay. Okay. Now, last thing I want to leave you with is that innovation is a team sport. It's not a sprint. It's not like the one on the left. It's a marathon, and it's often a teamwork. So it's not about individual glories. It's about putting everybody together and making things work. And that again is a big challenge for many scientists and engineers. So please think through this. It's important to keep in mind that it's a team sport where everybody has to succeed. And very often you are not the star. You have to have other people who star in the picture as well. In the BioNTech story, these are two people who founded the company, okay, and who are stars in their own right. And today they are well recognized. They've won many awards and so on and so forth. But they're recognized for something different. On the back end is a scientist who was this lady out here, okay, Carico, who did the work for the nucleoside modified RNA along with Weizmann. Chances are they will win the Nobel Prize one day in the future. But remember that when they developed it, they couldn't find takers, and they licensed it actually very cheap. And Carico actually works for BioNTech right now. Okay. And she wasn't given a faculty position, unfortunately. At that time, people didn't understand that. So it's a challenge. It's not easy, but nonetheless, there are people, there are pioneers who make this happen, and there are different roles, and it's all a teamwork that always works. Technology foresight is always key, so I will leave that aside. Sorry. What motivates entrepreneurs, I want to tell you, is not necessarily money. Money is important, but it is a byproduct very often. It's about realizing one's full potential. You find trapped in different roles where your full potential is not being tapped, and that's where you want to build something which taps your full potential and makes you achieve things which you are proud of at the end of the day. And that motivates a lot of entrepreneurs. So remember that is behind it, not necessarily just making money. Money is great. It's a byproduct. And I don't discourage it. Venture center like places are incubators which basically try to support it, right? They close the gaps. If you're crossing the pond, we put in stepping stones to help you cross the pond. And that is what incubators do. They also home for all these lonely people who are pursuing all these dreams as well. Today you have a interesting ecosystem near you, but even more so, you also have a lot of other opportunities. You have technology possibilities, you have funding as well. Okay, grants help you with a lot of funding. I want to tell you that all these things you see in green are funding opportunities from the government, which allow you to get started. Of course, it's not easy. Uh, it's competitive, but nonetheless, it is something which is available. Before this, only first generation entrepreneurs had no option. Only family entrepreneurs could start businesses. Today, the government supports all this in the beginning out here, and therefore you have this opportunity to do it. And why do? They do it to reduce your risk, okay, so that it becomes more interesting for investors to invest in your company. And interestingly, DSIR also now has announced that technologies can be given to startups from CSIR labs and so on and so forth. And that allows us to do all of these things as well. So these are enabling things. And because of this, you have all these startups and spinouts coming out from NCL, for example. But I want to close by telling you that out of the 14 founding teams from NCL, there are 9 scientists, 9 project students, project staff, postdocs who have actually contributed, 10 of them who have contributed to some of these companies, who are co-founders. So please remember that it is happening already. It is just that it may not have been very visible to you, but this is something which has been ongoing efforts. Here are some examples of alumni startups to inspire you. In NCL, of course, one cannot leave out Dr. Anji Reddy when one is talking about entrepreneurship from NCL, founder of Dr. Reddy's, Avra Laboratories, Dr. A.V. Ramarao, and these are some startups which have been created: Florentis, GenPep, AVM, Tridiagonal Solutions, Actorius, Amnium, Nyanlex. I forgot Swasti out here, which is from the biochemical sciences. All are alumni startups, and many of them in recent years. So there is a little bit of path which people have already laid, and many of you may want to consider doing it. So please think through, and I hope I will see you as entrepreneurs in the near future. Okay, so I'll stop with that. Thank you very much. Sorry I went a little over, but hopefully this gave you a quick introduction to entrepreneurship. Over to you, Shruti. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for such an interesting and insightful talk. It was a really nice talk. There was something new in every slide which we could learn having stimulating examples. We hope to hear more from you in future. And we would also say we are always dissatisfied even after listening to you many, many times. Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Now I request Spurti to introduce NCL Tech team. Over to you, Spurti.
Thank you, Sonali. So in brief, I would like to introduce our new team of NCL TEC.
Maybe you can switch on your video if it's possible.
Okay, sir. Okay, so I would be sharing the photos of our team. I hope the screen is visible now.
No, not yet. Yeah, now it is coming up.
Yeah. So here I would like to introduce to our new team, who is Subhashri K, who will be Vice President for this year. Then Swapnil, who will be Secretary of Group Activities. Sonali Naik, who will be doing the planning and all things for us. Then Saroj Gavas, who will be the Secretary of Talks and Communication. Hemant, who is backbone of our team, who will be dealing with the technical things. Then Arindam Saha, who will be communicating on behalf of us. Tanuja Tiwari, who will be doing who will be the secretary of meeting and all the stuff related to that. Then Sanket Gumare, who will be dealing with the financial stuff of TEC, and Pawan Kumar, who will be the secretary of execution. And we also thank Shikha Thakur and Prem Kothavde for their support initially. Thank you. If anybody have any queries regarding joining of the group or anything related to that, they can contact all of us. Thank you. So over to you, Swapnil, to our next session, panel discussion.
So thank you, Spurti. A very good afternoon to all of you. This brings us to the second session of the morning's The Innovator Story. Today we have with us 4 young scientists come entrepreneurs who have dared to dream big in spite of facing many odds. Let us dive deeper into their minds and see what a rollercoaster ride their entrepreneurial journey has been so far. With this, I would like to introduce you to our 4 panelists. We have with us Dr. Milind Choudhary, who is the founder and CEO at WeInnovate Biosolutions. We have Dr. Arjun Bajwa, who is the co-founder and CTO at KBCols Sciences Private Limited. We have Dr. Jyotirmayee Dash, who is the founder at TeraLumen Solutions. And fourth, we have Dr. Huprikar, who is the technical lead at Zerocircle. Each of our panelists will now give an overview of their startups and their products. Our first session for today, the first speaker for our session today is Dr. Milind Choudhary. So I'll just give a short introduction about him. Dr. Milind Choudhary is currently the founder and CEO of WeInnovate Biosolutions Pvt Limited. It is a startup incubated at NCL Innovation Park, Pune. He has obtained his master's in biotechnology from GHRIIT Nagpur and PhD microbiology from CNB, Agarkar Research Institute. He is a microbiologist at heart and works in the area of technology development. He has previously developed technologies like UTI-RAP, a rapid urinary tract infection detection kit, and DNA-RAP, a one-step DNA isolation method. He has several papers and patents to his credit in the area of nanotechnology and microbiology. He is the recipient of the prestigious Biotechnology Ignition Grant Award, that is the big award, and Small Business Innovation Research Initiative Grant from Biotechnology Industry Research Assistant Council, that is BIRAC. Owing to the success of the startup, he has been provided assistance from National Science and Technology Entrepreneurship Development Board, Government of India. Currently, he is involved in developing technologies for infection prevention and rapid diagnostics. So, Dr. Milind, I hand over the stage to you. So, please present.
Hello, thank you, Swapnil. Thank you very much for a kind introduction. Apparently, I think the system that I'm using, chances are that I may not be able to present. I think I've emailed you the presentation. If you could just download and share the presentation, that would be nice.
Yeah,
So,
sure.
yeah, frankly speaking, just to start before the slides come in, I think Dr. Premnath was spot on telling you about the whole ecosystem of how startup. I think you should always be dissatisfied about what you're doing is something which is really important aspect of startup entrepreneurship. I am one of you who was a student, a PhD student. I thought so many things that I always wanted to do something really interesting. That's for sure. And since I could not think about things which were as a set of rules that are always there, that you do PhD, then you go for postdoc, and then go for academic positions or something like that. That was something that I never wanted to do, and fortunately I was lucky enough to be in an area wherein now I can pursue what I wanted to do. So I think, as Dr. Premnath said, there are multiple reasons why people remain in the entrepreneurial ecosystem. And there can be multiple reasons. People would look for exponential returns on what they are doing, or want to reach out to large number of people. For me, my intention was that I always wanted my research to reach to masses, to multiple more people. There were two ways to do it. One is I license my technology and my research out to one of the largest companies, and then they do it, and then they earn money, and then ultimately everybody earns, and the research reaches to the end people. And the second option is that I take that leap and do it by myself. So I think I chose my own path uh, to to reach out to multiple people, and make my innovation into a product and make it available for a larger masses. The reason is, again, if I see, uh, if I have to look at multiple aspect, the chances of somebody else taking your research to that level is much lesser than what you can do. I mean, you could make your research go into a product and reach out to multiple people with more conviction than anybody else could. So I think that's where my story starts. Swapnil, could we get the presentation by any chance?
Uh, Actually, I haven't received your presentation, so it's still processing. I mean, I still haven't got on both of my mails. So I think if you can describe more about your company, just in
Sure.
short, so then we can move on to the next speaker. So since we have this technical issue, we can manage with it.
Milind, do you want to share it with me quickly? I
Yeah,
can
sure.
present.
Yeah.
And if you can even switch on your video.
Yeah. Swapnil, I would suggest why don't you ask the next speaker to start it, and in the meantime, we will work out this technical issue.
Yeah, sure, sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
So our next speaker for today is Dr. Arjun Bajwa. So Dr. Arjun Singh Bajwa is the CTO and co-founder of KBCols Sciences Private Limited. He has done his MTech from Institute of Chemical Technology Mumbai, formerly known as UDCT Mumbai, and is a PhD graduate in bioprocess technology, where he has worked in the field of rDNA technology, upstream and downstream processing, and molecular biology. Arjun is a first generation entrepreneur with proven skills in project management, research, and scale up of technologies. With this introduction, I would like to invite Dr. Arjun to please come and give his presentation. Dr. Arjun?
Yeah. Thank you, Swapnil, for this kind introduction. I would also like to thank NCL TEC for this opportunity to come and share our story, as well as Dr. Premnath and Venture Center for giving us this opportunity to be present here. So I'll just start my sharing.
Yeah, yeah.
I hope the deck is visible.
Not yet.
Not yet.
Not yet.
Arjun, you're using the share content button and then
Yeah,
use
yeah. I'm doing that again. Just one second.
use the windows on the right. Okay, may not.
Is it now visible? Because
No.
it's showing to me that it's sharing your screen.
There will be a red line around the page, around this window, if it's sharing. Arjun, try using the window, not the screen. Okay.
Okay, so I clicked on the whole screen. And okay, the window. Yeah.
Try the window and then choose the PPT which is open.
Is it done now?
Not yet. Just let me try it. See, you will see multiple windows there.
Okay, if required, I can also share. I have your presentation with me right now.
Yeah, please do.
That would do, ma'am. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Sure.
I hope the presentation is visible.
Yes.
Yes. Thank you.
It's still not visible to me.
Now, Arjun, we can see the presentation.
Okay, so maybe what I'll do, I'll talk through it because I have it with me.
Yeah, sure, you can start.
People can understand it. I'll just say next slide so that you can just change it and take it to the next slide.
Yeah, Shruti, see if you can go view full screen.
Sir, it's a PDF he has shared. So
oh yeah,
I'll be doing that. You just say the next slide. I'll be doing that.
Sure, I'll do it.
Yeah.
So good afternoon, everyone. I'm Arjun Singh Bajwa, co-founder and CTO of KBCols Sciences Private Limited. We are a deep tech startup based in Pune, India. We were incubated with Venture Center physically as well till start of this year, and have just recently moved out into a new facility. Just to give you a brief about the company, what we do. KBCols Sciences, at KBCols Sciences, we are trying to color the world in a different way. Next slide. So what was the need for KBCols Sciences? Well, as you know, colors are everywhere, from the clothes you wear to the food you eat to the cosmetic items, everything uses colors. And the colors that are presently used, they're all chemical colors. And the starting material for all those colors are petroleum resources, which we all know are non-renewable. And that's why many of these colors are even non-biodegradable in nature. There are now well-documented facts as to how the usage causes pollution. For example, just in textile, 20% of the freshwater pollution is happening because of the dyeing process that takes place with these chemical colors. And that is why there are a lot of regulatory challenges that are coming up, tough regulations in Europe, in America. India is also following on those steps as well, where people are looking to alternatives to these chemical colors. Next slide. Till now, the alternative that has existed has been colors coming from flowers and vegetables. It's well known how you can use marigold flower for extracting yellow color and using it. But our vision and our mission was different. We wanted to create colors from microorganisms and use them in different sectors. So what we have done is we go out and source microorganisms from soil, air, water. We get those organisms, we grow them, and we have extracted their colors through our technology, proprietary technology, where we have been able to get them just like fine chemical powder that you see with these chemical colors. Our vision is to be a leader in non-GMO. So all our colors are non-genetically modified organism colors, sustainable colors, and natural biocolors. A leader to be in that space. Next slide. We have just not produced these colors, but we have also shown that these colors can have applications in different sectors. And that's why we've been a little different. We were actually a color producing company, but what we have done is that try and become a complete solution provider where we can give out the definite ways of using our colors as well. So on the right hand side, you can see our actual dyed fabrics with our colors. And these fabrics are now at display at the Fashion for Good Museum in Netherlands. We collaborated with a Dutch fashion house, Hullekes, based out of Amsterdam. And the feedback received for these colors, these dresses, has been very encouraging and very amazing. So these are actual products that now are using our colors and are out there at display as well. Next slide. These colors have a lot of advantages, and by aligning with us, what we could see, we could reduce the BOD, COD of the dyeing effluent that comes out by 50%. All our colors were safe and natural for the workforce to use. They are all coming from renewable resources, which is one of the biggest advantages to take forward. Next slide. So over here, I'll just like to give you a brief about our journey. We started back in 2018. In the bottom, you can see we set up our R&D thanks to BIRAC Big Grant, and Venture Center was our associated incubator for that big grant. And we set up our R&D, moved into our R&D, and progressed with the way of building the technology. In 2019, based upon the progress we had shown, BIRAC again supported us through a Sparsh grant to take this technology forward. And in 2020, we were able to close our seed round, which was led by top investors like Chirate Ventures. Axelo Ventures co-participated as well as Derby Foundation. So 2020 is when we raised our seed round. In the last 6 months, we have now set up our own pilot plant in Pune, Bhosri, where we are developing this technology and scaling this up. And we are running some very exciting pilots with European brands, with American brands that might come to completion by July 22, and we can share more insights as well. Our technology has won many awards, including the Technology Development Board Startup Technology Award given by DST and TDB. We won the National Bio-Entrepreneurship Competition as well. And in 2019, 2020, we went global, where in Singapore, we were one of the winners at the L'Oreal Innovation Runway as well. In the end, next slide, I'll just like to maybe summarize our evolution. When we started, we were 2 people in 180 square feet lab. Today, we have set up our own fully equipped 2,000 square feet R&D pilot plant in Bosri, Pune. We are a team of 15 and growing rapidly. So this is a summary of how KBCols has evolved from 2018 to 2021-22. In the end, last slide, I'd like to show this team that brings this innovation to life. We are led by Dr. Vaishali Kulkarni. She's also a PhD from ICT UDCT Mumbai. And she works on the process part, getting the organisms and everything. I'm Arjun, also PhD from ICT Mumbai. I look into business operations and the scale up of the technology. And we are very fortunate to have a young team of scientists and engineers who help us with day-to-day research activities. Yeah. Thank you so much for the opportunity and the time.
Thank you, Arjun. That was a nice presentation. And you have given us in-depth detail of your startup right from the inception to the current situation. Thank you. Our next speaker for today is Dr. Jyotirmayee Dash, who is the founder at TeraLumen Solutions. Dr. Jyotirmayee Dash is the founder and CEO of India's first terahertz company, TeraLumen Solutions. Before starting TeraLumen, she has completed her doctoral degree from CSIR CERI, Chennai, and has published more than 30 international journal and conference papers, along with 1 US granted and 1 filed patent. TeraLumen Solutions is mainly into developing compact and low-cost artificial intelligence-enabled terahertz devices for various biomedical and industrial applications. The company has been awarded with prestigious government grants such as BIRAC Big, Nidhi Prayas, Mighty Tide 2.0, TAN Seed from the government of Tamil Nadu. With this introduction, I would like to invite Dr. Jyotirmayee Dash onto the stage.
Hi, thank you so much. Thanks, Dr. Premnath. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. I'll just try to share my screen. Just 1 second. Yeah, let me know if my screen is visible to all of you.
Yes, it is visible.
Yeah, your screen is visible, ma'am.
Thank you so much. So yeah, before starting, yes, I have completed PhD from CSIR CERI, and I have been supporting by Venture Center Pune. Dr. Premnath is a great mentor to me. I'll just give a small introduction, only 2 minutes. I'll give a talk about the company, what we do, and what is our plan. So yeah, we have started TeraLumen Solutions in 2019. That is India's first terahertz company. Myself, Dr. Jyoti, is the CEO and founder of this company. I have Dr. Soumi Kray, he is the co-founder, and we have been mentored by Dr. Bala Pesala. He was my PhD guide, and Dr. Sam, he was 36 years of experience from GE. They're mentoring us technically. We have also clinical team with us, Dr. Anurag, Dr. Juhi, and Dr. Wani from Dr. Mehta's hospital. So our vision is to develop compact terahertz devices for intraoperative cancer margin detection and industrial NDT application. So I'll just give a brief intro. So why we have started this company? So I have completed PhD from CSIR CERI from 2014 to 17. So at CSIR, what we have done, we have used extensive terahertz devices, mainly for various applications, starting from design of terahertz tags. That's a future project supported by Dr. Premnath and Dr. Asutosh from Pune. And Dr. Bala was the PI in this project. And we have also applied terahertz for various applications, starting from NDT to pharmaceutical applications. You can see the system at CSIR. We have exported from Menlo, Toptica, the larger companies, larger terahertz companies. But the system is very much bulky and it's very expensive. It's close to 1 crore. So it was completely in the lab level where people have used for R&D and publishing papers and patents. So myself under guidance of Dr. Bala, we thought we can make it a small compact device. You can see now this is the product 2022. We have developed the complete compact product along with the controller and optical unit. It's a handheld compact device where you can carry everywhere, a low cost indigenous compact device. And we are using for various applications where it will having huge social impact, like cancer margin detection, We are using terahertz for industrial entity non-destructive evaluations, food quality monitoring, and one more project, skin hydration monitoring. So we made the device hardware along with the software, and now we are in the validation stage. So the main project which we are working on mainly cancer margin detection. So we have developed low cost compact device, which the main application is intraoperative cancer margin detection. So what it does, as you see, so many breast cancer and oral cancer cases in a year, and this keep on increasing drastically. 30% of cancer surgeries fail due to inaccurate margin detection. So what does it mean? When the surgeons will remove the cancerous tissue, they will remove extra amount of healthy tissue, which is called negative margin. So it's a successful surgery. In some cases, since because we do not have any intraoperative device available right now in India, doctors will remove the cancerous tissue, but sometimes since because in visual eyes we cannot see properly, some amount of tissue will be left out in the body. That's called positive margin. So in these cases, the patients have to go for repeat surgery or second surgery. You can see approximately 30,000 to 40,000 repeat surgeries per year, which is costing huge for the patients and for the hospitals also. So currently we do not have any intraoperative device available. The current procedure is histopathology assessment, which is very much time consuming, although it's a gold standard technique. It will take 4 to 7 days of time, and we need an expert pathologist for the assessment, which they have to go for formalin fixing, embedding, and then pathologists have to see in the optical microscope. So we have cumbersome time consuming process right away. So in order to solve this problem, we at TeraLumen are developing a compact device based out of terahertz technology. It can intraoperatively identify the cancer margin in real time and accurately within 10 minutes of surgery. It will reduce the number of second surgery. At the same time, it will help to conserve maximum normal tissue. So it is very much safe and accurate. This technology's energy is milliwatt. So it's completely non-ionizing compared to X-ray and other ionizing technology. The device up to this, it is providing very high sensitivity and specificity by our AI artificial intelligence module. The decision is based on real time. It will help the doctor to accurately and rapidly detect the tissue during surgery within 10 minutes compared to days in gold standard technique. It's cost effective, compact system, and the greatest advantage is we do not need to add any chemical reagents or any staining to the sample. So once the fresh sample is excised, it can be imaged immediately. So this is the solution we are providing. So current traction, we have been collaborating with major cancer hospitals like MSM Bangalore, PGI Chandigarh. We are doing the validation with them, RGCI Delhi, and Dr. Mehta's hospital, from which ethical clearance has been cleared right now. We have developed both hardware and AI-enabled software, and it has been validated with 50 multicentric tissue samples, both fresh sample and formalin-fixed samples. And we have been supported by Nidhi Prayas from Venture Center Pune, BIRAC BIJ grant. It is through Venture Center again. Also from Government of Tamil Nadu, EDI and TANSEED. And we have also supported by VIT TIDE 2.0 and one more MIT grant. So this is our traction and stage. Our roadmap, now we have built the hardware and software, and proof of concept has been done. The next plan is immediately go for validation with large number of fresh tissue samples, and then we'll go for certification. And by 24, we're targeting to launch the product. So these are the few achievements. We are finalists in Qualcomm Women Entrepreneur India Network. We have been covered by Your Story, NewsX. Recently, we got an award from Audience Award from Wharton India Challenge, and top 19 startups in Government of Tamil Nadu. Thank you. Happy to answer any of your questions.
Thank you so much, Dr. Jyotirmayee. That was indeed quite in detail. So,
thank you.
As of now, we will proceed on to the next speaker, as we have a short amount of time left now. So, moving on to the next speaker, I would like to invite Dr. Sameer Huprikar, who is the technical officer at Zerocircle. Sorry. So I would like to invite Dr. Sameer Huprikar, who is the Chief Technical Officer at Zerocircle Alternatives. So Dr. Sameer Huprikar is a polymer engineer who did his master's from University of Massachusetts, Lowell, and then graduated as a doctoral student from NCL, where he worked with Dr. Ashish Lele, with Dr. Ashish Lele as the co-guide. His area of interest is polymer processing and materials development. Currently, he is the technical head of Zerocircle Alternatives. So I invite Dr. Sameer to please give a talk. Thank you.
Hello, am I audible?
Yes, yes, you're audible.
Okay. Good afternoon, everybody. Firstly, I thank the team for giving me a chance to speak over here today. And I'd like to say congratulations to the NCL Tech Club, which has restarted again. And also congratulate the Venture Center for completing 15 years, which is a very inspiring journey. To begin with, I represent Zerocircle alternatives, and what I'll do now is I'll just share my presentation with uh, audience. Is my screen visible now?
Yes, yeah, it's visible.
Okay. Zerocircle is basically we are an industry which is looking at sustainable packaging materials, and these materials are based on industry ready seaweed materials, which are looking at very strong environmental impact in reducing the footprint of carbon. To begin with, uh, we are looking at flexible as well as non-flexible options. And is my screen changing or no?
Your screen is not changing. Can you
Okay.
just go for the viewed slideshow mode?
Yeah, I'll do that. Actually, I went to the view slideshow mode, but it didn't shift. Okay, now is the screen changing now?
Yeah, it is changing now.
Okay. So basically, we are looking at carbon neutral home compostable packaging materials, which are derived on feedstock, and this feedstock is based on seaweed materials, and our solutions are basically regenerative, ethical, and which are looking to reduce emissions. That is the intent of what we are doing. Now, what is the larger problem over here when we say packaging? The current materials which we look at, they are typically, raw material sources which is sourced from the oil and gas and land agricultural sort of industries, and these are a very high carbon footprint, and they lead to significant ecological cost on the environment, and because of that you're also looking at high emissions, which is a huge problem. uh, and the and the entire life cycle of those materials, so even if you are looking at recycled materials, you will be looking at raw materials which are not so renewable, and at the end of it, when you finish the materials usage, you will either dump it into the ocean or in the landfill, which is again a very high carbon footprint and ecological cost. So both these options can be really are getting really problematic in the current scenario. So you might be looking at alternative sustainable solutions, which currently most of them are looking at people are looking at agricultural materials. So these products are typically putting in again significant uh, load on the land, soil, and water sort of resources, because you're looking at uh, materials such as say cellulose or PLAs or PHAs. These things are looking at cultivation of
Uh,
I think we have lost him. Samir, we are not able to hear you.
I guess a problem with network at his end.
Yeah.
Okay. I request Swapnil to check if Milind's presentation is
I'm
there.
trying to contact with him.
Yeah. Milind has shared.
His
Yeah.
presentation also.
Swapnil, you have the presentation of Samir?
Yes, sir, I have the presentation.
Yeah, I think what you can do is ask him to come on just sound, not video,
Okay.
and just I
Okay,
think
okay.
be doing it using his wireless line.
Okay, sir. Yeah.
You can show the slides if you can.
Yes, sir. Just a moment.
Yeah.
Are my slides visible?
They're coming up. Yeah.
Yes.
Full screen.
Okay. Dr. Samir?
We lost him.
Okay, I'll try to reconnect again.
Till then, maybe we can start with Milind's presentation.
Yes, ma'am. Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
While you do that, let us take questions from the audience. Okay, so we have one question for Dr. Jyotirmayee Dash. Uh, is ma'am there?
Sorry.
Yeah, we have a question for you from our audience. Bharat is
Sure.
asking, yeah, Bharat is asking, uh, excellent technology, congratulations. You mentioned that
Thank
the
you.
yeah, uh, you mentioned that the terahertz device that you are using for detecting cancer cells has non-ionizing radiation. Could you please elaborate?
Yeah, sure. So the non-ionizing means if you'll see the electromagnetic spectrum, if I have, I could have shown you. So in the between you can see visible and infrared region, right? It is far below the X-ray and radiographic region. So when we'll reduce the frequency, energy equal to E equal to H nu. If frequency is very less, your energy will be in milliwatt. So it's completely non-ionizing. In that sense, I'm telling.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you. Dr. Arjun has answered the question in the chat box frame. He has answered for your question. Then we move ahead with the WeInnovate Biosolutions presentation from Dr. Milind. Over to you, Swapnil.
Swapnil, you can go full screen, please. It's under view options. Swapnil, just go full screen and in the same. You had the PDF open. Just go to view options, view full screen on top left. Next one, yeah.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, please.
Yeah. Great. Yeah, so thank you very much for calling me here. So as I was telling you, I'm one of you who had walked through the whole process of the journey, moving forward now here, and then I think the journey post is also going to be an interesting roller coaster ride. So my name is Dr. Milind Choudhary. I'm the founder and CEO of WeInnovate Biosolutions, and as you know, you would see this smile on my face. I'm always like this because the entrepreneurial journey is something very interesting. I still remember one of the words that Dr. Premnath had told me once when we were very early at Venture Center. He said, you're gonna learn a lot of things very fast, So buckle up and be ready for those. So I think that's something that which is happening in our entrepreneurial journey. There's a lot of things that you get to learn much faster than you would expect. So I think you sometimes you do a compressed MBA course in just 2 months or 3 months of time, and then you get to know all this interesting thing. So I was an innovator. I am an innovator. I think I'll be an innovator all my life, keeping on doing multiple things that I could do, but I'm very passionate about infection prevention, and I'm using nanotechnology, biotechnology interface to solve the problem of infection prevention, which is there. I've already found, a couple of technologies, and now fortunately, one of the technologies already granted patent for, and for which we have a product in the market. Can I have the next slide, please? Yeah, so we innovate biosolution, as the word suggests, it's a sentence in itself. When you take the name we innovate biosolutions, you already become the part of the journey of innovation in the company. So that's how we are outreaching with the mission of having close to zero infections. We want to save as many infections as we can in the complete ecosystem, and we want to bring our technologies replacing the existing high-end expensive technologies to solve a much bigger problem and real problem in medical devices space. Next slide, please. Yeah, so I think we are one of those examples wherein all the team members are scientists who turned into entrepreneur with a lot of rigorous things that we had to go through. Myself, Milind, Prasad is also my colleague, and we three were doing PhD at the same time. Prasad and me were sharing a bench, and that's how we are still sharing. We are still sharing the bench. Next slide, please. We are fortunate, I'm fortunate to work with one of my very close people who are now turned into advisors. So I think along with our journey as entrepreneurs, our scientist journey, I think one of the phase all the NCL people know is also walking through the journey of becoming an advisor in a company. So I think there is a lot of exchange that happens between the advisors and the entrepreneurs. So rather than being, having a very high level discussions about the strategy, business, and all those things, majority of the entrepreneur require a lot of, patting on the back, and kind of friendly fatherly advice from people who have gray hair, saying that okay, fine, these things happens, and you keep moving, I'm there with you. This kind of support also is very important. I'm going to talk a lot of philosophical stuff, because I think entrepreneurial journey is more about philosophical things. Everybody's journey is different, so they ultimately reach out and evolve into multiple bigger larger things, but the philosophical things remains. The fundamental question is, are you that guy who wants to become that entrepreneur, is something which all of you needs to ask yourself. So I'm fortunate to have these very strong advisors with the company, and moving forward, a lot of people are also joining the team without any commercial interest. Next slide, please. Yeah, so WeInnovate Biosolutions journey started in 2016. I was a PhD student at that point of time. I wanted to do something else. I just, happened to be at Venture Center at some point. Have somebody just, gave me a form and said, "Hey, there is a BIG grant. You shall apply for this." I applied. I met Dr. Premnath, and I think after that the journey changed. We got biotechnology ignition grant. Then we've got multiple grants because of the success of the project that we could show. Sibri from Department of Biotechnology, again from BIRAC, NSTBT from Department of Science and Technology. And then we were very fast in terms of what needs to be done. I think we were one of the first company at Venture Center to have ISO 13485 certification back in 2018 itself. Next slide. And moving forward, we were being scientists, there were a lot of ideas which were coming in our mind, but then we had to focus, channelize things, and then we said, okay, fine, yay, I think we have 5 ideas, but we have to leave couple of them here and there, and then we have to focus on one idea and move forward. And that's how in 2018 we I think the screen is gone, but that's fine. In 2018 we came up with the concept Silvo Guard, which is the silver nanoparticles based technology on which now we are moving forward. The slides are gone, unfortunately.
Swapnil or Shruti, can
Just a moment, just a moment.
Yeah.
Just, just a moment, sir.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. Next slide. And in 2020, we received a funding from one of the top 5 VCs in India, Choudhary Ventures, and to move forward. 2021, we got the marketing license, CDSCO approval for the product, one of the toughest thing to do, and now we are into sales. Next slide, please. Yeah, so one of the biggest problem that we were actually looking at, and problem solving was something that I always wanted to do. And the bigger problem was antimicrobial resistance, which is already there. Superbugs are created, and superbugs are now dominating the whole ecosystem. And then because of which the healthcare services industry, antibiotics, diagnostics, all those industries have been impacted, and there is a lot of change and revolution which is happening. uh, Very big problem in terms of hospital acquired infections, which is having a lot of economical burden onto the patient, but also onto the hospitals and the whole ecosystem. I think COVID was one of the biggest example that we saw. A huge amount of influx of unnecessary antibiotics or drugs are being injected in the patients, which are creating a larger social problem as well, besides just the economical problem. Next slide. So what are the solutions that we could next slide, please. Yeah, we could do. So our solution is, we were masters in silver nanoparticles technology. We were, and I think a lot of us and people from Pune already know silver and silver nanoparticles. And we said, hey, I think this is one of the molecule which is already being used, multiple number of times, and trying to do multiple commercial activity around silver and silver nanoparticles. But why is it that they are not able to do it? And we have a long legacy of silver as an antimicrobial agent indeed, but nobody has been able to successfully put it forward in terms of the potential that it could reach out to. Next slide. So what we did is we used the advent of the advanced technology that we had, and we created silver nanoparticles, which needs to be more and more stable in terms of increasing the application area of silver nanoparticles. So primary focus was to get great activity, to reduce the toxicity, to reduce the cost, to reduce the stability and the efficacy. Next slide, please. And we were successfully able to achieve all these aspects, looking and doing R&D. So one of the bigger problem that we saw that, okay, fine, silver nanoparticles is a concept which is, back in 90s, almost 20 years old concept, but still we have not been able to reach the fullest capacity and potential that it should have been. So I think we identified there are the four major problems. One is scalability, stability, affordability, and versatility of the molecule. And this is where we spend around 3 years of our R&D in converting it into a large scale process. And we are finally able to prepare nano egicide, which is now a patented platform technology on the basis of which we are creating multiple more products. Next slide, please. So with silver nanoparticles, of course, all of us know that antimicrobial is the thing of today. Everybody wants to, make antimicrobial surfaces, sanitizers, gloves, XYZ, lot of material, mobiles. But we said, okay, fine. We want to work in an area wherein we can also generate impact with our technology. And besides just generating impact, we can also get the value anticipation. One of the most important thing what technologies have to keep in mind is use your technology into the area wherein you are not only going to get the anticipation of the technology, but also going to get the value anticipation of the technology. I mean, you have seen Lifebuoy getting silver nanoparticles technology in their sabun, and they were selling it at 10 rupees, 12 rupees. And then the whole technological advantage and the value attached to the silver nanoparticles was completely lost. So we said we don't want to work into those areas. We want to work into the area wherein we can get more anticipation on technology and value and impact. So we are focusedly working on antimicrobial medical devices because hospital acquired infections is one of the biggest problems. So with our silver nanoparticles technology, we are making the existing and medical devices by which there are a lot of infections which are happening in the hospitals, making them antimicrobial and saving all those infections. So one of the first product that we have launched is this antimicrobial Foley's catheter. Next slide, please. And I will not show you award slides. One of the biggest award that we have received is one when we could save the lives of the patients. Today, we are happy to tell you that we've already reached to 15,000 patients all across. We've saved crores of rupees from healthcare costs to secondary cost saving. We have saved nursing hours. This is the most important thing because today nurses are less. We have 2 nurses behind every 500 or 600 people. We have saved potentially 6,000 coties, 4 to 6 days of hospitalization of per patient that we could save. And we are not only present in India, but also in one of the neighboring country. So we are happy that our journey was successful moving forward. We want to create more and more antimicrobial products and taking the journey forward. Last slide. Next slide, please. Yeah. So there are a lot of people to thank. I think Venture Center would definitely deserve the first one to thank for, because if they would not have been there, maybe we would not have also been there. With Birec, I am Ahmedabad and Nidhi Press and NSTPD. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Milind. So you have done a lot of work in your startups. You have developed many technologies indeed. So that's really interesting. So I would like to invite our next speaker, again, Dr. Sameer Huprikar, who we had lost the connection with. So yeah, Dr. Sameer, can you hear me?
Yeah. Hi, am I audible now?
Yes, you're audible.
Yes.
So
Okay. Can you
Spurti
just
will present your
share the
slides.
presentation? Yeah.
Swapnil, you can present.
Okay. Like I
Yeah,
previously
have
said,
shared the slides.
yeah. Thanks. So basically, we are into development of seaweed-based industry-ready packaging, as I previously mentioned. Can we go to the next slide? Next slide, please. Slide 3, maybe. Yeah, yeah. So I was at a problem statement. So why are we doing all this? So basically, you have the synthetic materials which are dominating current packaging solutions, and they are looking at consuming a huge amount of oil and gas and land agricultural sort of resources. They are creating issues both sourcing of raw materials and at the end of the life options as well are problematic. So people have been looking at alternative options where they look at agriculture based products, for development of maybe biodegradable materials in the form of say PLA, PHA, PET, or cellulose based materials. So these again are significantly consuming land, soil, and water because of agricultural base of these materials, and that's a huge issue. And from that perspective, we have been looking at seaweed as an alternative material, which is a material. Can you go to the next slide, please? Hello. Yeah. So that's the reason we've been looking at seaweed as a future for packaging materials. Now, why seaweed? Seaweed is essentially a material that grows under the sea, uses no land. It requires seawater. You don't need any fresh water or distillation sort of apparatus for it. You don't need fertilizers for it. It does a significant amount of, it eats up a lot of carbon dioxide, which helps in actually cleaning up the environment, and also it makes good food for fish to thrive. And in the process, it is actually creating a good source of income for coastal community, especially I mean, if you look at areas such as Kerala and Gujarat in India, these communities are actually working on development of such getting seaweed for development of products based on these materials. So next slide, please. Okay, so from that perspective, now where are we standing? So basically, we are actually able to look at materials which are nice and transparent, film materials, flexible film materials, and you can actually print nicely onto them. You are able to heat seal them, and you are also able to make stretchable plastic, covering packages for these materials. So at this point in time, we are actually able to make these materials, but the bigger challenge that we are actually looking at is right now at a process scale up stage, wherein we are trying to make these processes continuous so that you can mass manufacture these materials in a more efficient way. So that is where we stand at this point in time. And in the longer, from a future perspective, next slide, please. From a future plus perspective, we are basically looking at a huge range of products across various segments. But primarily at this point in time, it would be more towards flexible packaging in FMCG and FMCG sort of applications which are you know something which are within the reach and which are actually creating a big problem. As I mentioned previously, the government of India, as well as many other countries across the world, have actually started creating regulations on banning or reducing the extent of single-use materials. So that's the bigger challenge why most of the FMCG sort of companies are looking into getting these kind of materials made. So that is where we are at this point in time, and what we are looking at. So to do this, we are basically next slide, please. So to do this, we have a team which is very passionate about doing this work. Our founder Neha Jain, she's been working. She worked with Google and then she started looking for different options wherein you can get sustainability into picture in the industry. And she was guided really well by Dr. C.R.K. Reddy, who is a phytologist, and myself, Satej, and Prajwal are the internal team that is working on the ground over here. So we are a very passionate team looking to do a lot of things, and I hope that we are able to contribute significantly to this technology going forward. Thanks.
Yeah. Am I audible?
Yes, Swapnil.
Thank you, Samir. That was really an interesting solution for a worldwide problem. So, well, thank you all for the wonderful presentations. All of us are really curious to gain insights into what entrepreneurship really is. So, without further ado, we will begin with our discussions. So, before I start that, I request all of the panelists to please switch on their videos and unmute themselves. Arjun?
I've already done that. It's showing to me that it's on for me. Maybe you can proceed with some problem.
Swapnil, please proceed.
Yeah.
Okay, fine. Sure, no issues. So then, okay, thank you everyone for the talk. So let's begin with our questions. So looking at the startups today, which we have invited, all of them have PhD graduates from the same institutes as their co-founders. So what was the thought process in the initial phase of building your team and what were the challenges? Milind, please can you comment on this?
Yeah, so I think very interesting because it is a double-edged sword. At one way, when it is a comfort zone for you to work in an organization when you have all the people as your friend, because there are a lot of things which you don't need to speak. You understand each other's language. But on the flip side of it, the problem is as investor they see that it's a risk because all of you are thinking as same and all of you have the same kind of orientation. You might not be able to think what can go wrong, and that's a bad thing from an investor. It's a red flag. But eventually, if you actually show the commitment and show some sort of results that okay fine, no matter all the founders have the same sort of understanding and all, but we have still weighed out what are the negatives and what are the fallbacks, and we could show that executed very well, then the chances are that the investor might put in money. In our case they did. So that is one of the most important things. So when you talk about challenges and advantages, advantages are more than challenges. I think because when you have your friends as your friends, I think everybody says that a known devil is always better. So a lot of fights that you would do and how they will react after the lot of fights that you will have in the boardrooms, would be judged already. So I think that is something that that helps. So positives are very much, but there are of course a lot of challenges. As I told you, people don't take you very seriously when you say that, okay, we are a bunch of guys trying to do something really interesting. That is one of the bigger challenge. And second bigger challenge is capital. So for example, and I'll give you an example of capital. When you are one of the founder from different field and you have another founder from a different field, if your field is going under recession, his field is going up, so you at least know at one point of time, okay fine, someone will be earning money and come se kam ghar ka to kaam chal jayega sort of thing. But when you are all from the same field, chances are that you are all going down at the same time, so you don't have somebody to look after. That's one of the challenges and disadvantages of having this.
Nice. So I think even Arjun's startup, both of the co-founders are PhD graduates from ICT. I think Arjun, would you like to comment something on this?
Yeah, thanks, Swapnil. I think very relevant point when you said that two people coming from the same institute, same background, how do people perceive it? I think it's more about the strengths that each bring to the table. In our case, we've been very clear about what strength Vaishali was bringing to the table and what strength I was bringing to the table when we met our investors, when we pitched for the grants and everything. I think, but it's as Milind said, it's better to have a known devil than to have an unknown devil with you and work. Because trust is one of the biggest things, and team remains the focus of building a startup, especially in early days. Team is very important. So I think it's always better to have someone you know well and you can gel well with. Yes.
Okay, thank you. So before moving on to the next question, I would just like to request all of the speakers that we are running short on time. So please keep your answers short and simple. Yeah. So moving on to the next question now. So for Samir, like normally one usually thinks that seaweed. So seaweed to packaging material. I mean, it seems kind of unconventional. So what is the genesis of this idea? I mean, how did this idea originate initially?
So, I mean, the initial idea was, as I mentioned in the presentation, which most of you probably didn't get a chance to listen to properly, unfortunately. It's basically, it lies in the idea that we want to look at sustainability, and when we look at sustainability, we should be looking at it in a more robust way, because what happens is, looking at the current scenario for going towards biocompostable, biodegradable sort of materials, people are actually you know uh, a little mixed up about things. So what happens is, you have to also look at not consuming too many resources, and you are also looking at developing materials which you can use for longer times, for a shelf life, and for products that can be used and thrown easily, sort of. So that's the theme which people go by, and from that perspective, it is very essential that we look at materials which are easily compostable, which can be easily made, and which are also cheap. So I mean, that's basically where you come to a point where you start looking at materials which can permit you to do that. So seaweed is a sort of a resource which is plenty. It's available in plenty. You have a 80% of the sea around you, and you have weed growing everywhere. You can utilize that weed in a proper way to make materials and products out of it. That is the theme where it actually began. And we got very good guidance from Dr. Reddy at ICCTR. So he's been a good mentor sort of on this technology.
Thank you. So moving on to the next question, Jyotirmayee, like when and how did you think that terahertz radiation and artificial intelligence as a business opportunity that could be utilized and materialized to solve real world problems?
Could you come again,
What was
Swapnil?
your thought? Yes, sorry.
Come again. Yeah, could you
So
come again?
when,
I think I missed it. Yeah.
yeah, when and how did you think of utilizing terahertz radiation and artificial intelligence as a business opportunity that could be materialized to solve real world problems?
Yeah, thanks, Swapnil. So yeah, I'll make it crispy and short. So
Yeah.
terahertz, as I said, there are some applications like, for example, cancer, I say, or NDT applications. Terahertz is a very specific. For example, depending on the material, terahertz will work better to provide very good contrast compared to X-ray. Yeah, as although energy is less, but somewhere it's due to the its inherent characteristics. For example, as I said, cancer, when there is a tumor, you have water content and structural change. So you will get far better contrast in terahertz compared to X-ray. And AI will give you extra enhanced specificity and sensitivity. It will help you to improve accuracy of the detection. So as I said, since because it's a very peculiar characteristics of this radiation, it will help you to solve real world challenges which the other technique may not. For example, IR is a very good technique for screening. But when coming to diagnostics, terahertz is far better penetration ability or resolution than IR. So since because we have a varied expertise from 2012, we are working on this technology. We know where to penetrate, where to apply this technology to solve real world challenges.
Nice. Thank you. So, Arjun, speaking in terms of sustainability as well as microbes, since you have a biotech startup, so different microbes produce different biocolors. So, and producing biocolors using microbes on a large scale seems quite advanced. So, how did you pitch for funds from investors to develop such a technology on large scale?
Yeah. Thanks, Swapnil. A very relevant question as well. I think when if you look at it, the inspiration we got was during our PhD journey. So it
Right.
was during our PhD journey at ICT Mumbai. We have a very big textile department over there, and a lot of projects used to come on, treatment of wastewater. And that was the time I and Vaishali realized, why not create safer biocolors in first place. We checked out the only alternative that was there at scalable route was plants, and that's when we realized, through our background, we could take this to microbial biocolors as well. We started participating in a lot of events, pitching to investors, and we were able to showcase to them that one of our strengths would be to not only scale up the technology, but also develop recipes and be one of the only providers that can give you the product as well as the way of using it. And that's what separates us right now with many of our competitors that just are right now providing the colors and not being able to give.
Okay. Nice. So, yeah, now your video is visible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's why I said that we were able to give that out, show to investors that we could not only get this technology scaled up, but also
Right.
make the product viable and sustainable to use. Saying that we're still on our journey. It's still a long journey for us. We do realize it, but we are fortunate to have backers who understand that and are providing us with the patient capital required in building this technology up.
So, what was the proof of concept that you present to the investors at that point of time?
Yeah. Proof of concept is very important. I think whenever you're pitching to investors, you need what we showed was we were able to get swatches of fabrics dyed with our microbial colors, and we were able to show to the investors as well as the funding teams that this case was possible. I think the only doubt they had was whether this technology could be scaled up or not. So we even did some scale up trials through other grants that we were able to receive from BIRAC, where we took this technology to 20 liters, 50 liters, and showed that this technology can be scaled up to 50, 100 liters, and now we can take it even further to 1,000 and 10,000 liters. So showing the way that the technology can be scaled up and having small swatches of the product dyed with our colors was one of those important proof of concepts that we showed.
Right. Nice. So since you have the new facility of 2000 square feet, so what is the maximum capacity that you can produce?
Yeah. So now at our in-house, we have 30 liters that we have been able to procure of our own. But outside, we have third party, we've been able to take it to 100 liters and are now priming up for trials at 1000 liters as well. But the good part is that we can now give out dye stuff in kgs. So we've been able to export a lot of dye stuff to Europe, US, where these manufacturers have been able to try our products on their garments and fabrics.
Right. So coming to the scalability, Samir,
Yeah.
please can you comment on the difference between academic research and the research conducted in startups? Meaning, what proved to be a challenge for product development in your case, as you said?
Yeah.
Scale.
So sure. So typically, what happens is in the academic level, like you guys are all aware at NCL, it's more in milligrams and micrograms. But when you actually start scaling things up, the mathematics changes a lot because you also have to play around with a lot of equipment coming into picture. So very simple things which you would do using a two-roll, a small mixing, your solution mixing sort of a setup, you would require an extruder to do things. So when you
Right.
move from those kind of equipments, when you try to scale them up, your power consumption, your capacity to run those things at larger volumes for both reactors as well as moving equipment such as extruders and injection molding machines. So those kind of things will start coming into picture. And doing a small reaction at 20 grams and doing one at 2000 grams or 2 kgs or 20 kgs is a very different ball game, both from a scale up perspective, your reactions or processes happening, as well as from sourcing perspectives, because then it also becomes very important to you don't have the liberty to go all the time to sigma aldrich. You need to
Okay.
look at other sourcing
That
equipments
is
and
correct.
people who can do it for you at much cheaper prices. And most importantly, you have to look at whatever you do from a market perspective, because then there's a money picture coming into money angle coming into the picture. So that is one of the biggest transitions, I would say, from lab to market sort of this thing. It is also more focused on development of products rather than just demonstrating experiments. It's more about products. It is more refined. So you demonstrate something in the lab and then you refine it further when you go into the industry, more from a market perspective.
Interesting. My next question is directed towards Milind and Jyotirmayee. So can you, in short, describe what are the regulatory obligations needed to take a product directly to the market? I mean, yeah. So Milind, I think WeInnovate has recently received CDSCO approvals for some products. So would you just add something over there? So just in short.
Yeah, sure, Swapnil. So it depends on the device and which class is belong to. Since because my device is class A device, is completely non-invasive, so we do not need much regulatory approval. And this is non-listed in CDSCO. We have to list it, but we do not need. Yeah, when state level regulatory approval is enough. For again, depending on which technology and which device you are working to, and what is the application.
Right.
Yeah. So it varies from startup to startup, from technology to technology.
Yeah, I think
Sunil, I'm just not feeling well. Maybe
Yes.
fever
Yes.
is there. If I can leave or you allow me
Okay.
for
Okay.
some
Sure.
time.
Sure. Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. Sure. No. No issues. Please take it. Please take it. Yeah.
Thank you so much for inviting. Thank you, the entire team. Yeah, we love to be in touch with you.
sure, thank you.
Bye.
Yeah, I think Swapnil, to answer your question, it's actually it's very tough. Regulatory is always a bottleneck for medical devices company. At one side, when we see the technology is very high, aimed, and it is going to be a deep tech sort of thing. At ultimately, we have to then categorize it into where is it falling into the regulatory landscape. As Jyotirmayee said, class A, class B, class C, class D medical devices. There are some innovations which are very good,
Right.
but they are falling into class C and they are attracting a lot of regulatory compliances in terms of clinical trials and all those sort of thing. So it's a very expensive affair. and one has to be prepared to take care of all these aspects and under consideration. So I think having a very good and sound understanding of regulatory is very important, because this happens to a lot of healthcare startups, that they move to a stage and then ultimately they realize that okay, fine, there is no way forward. So I think it's very important.
Nice. So I think, yeah, since we're running short on time, I'll just ask last two questions. So, Samir, like in today's consumerism centric world, the packaging industry has to take a stand to reduce the carbon footprint of the world. So, since you are in the packaging industry, you have to deal with FMCGs, right? So, how would you convince them to endorse your product at this stage?
So basically, this happens at two levels. The first level being it's more of the FMCGs approaching us is something is what is happening at this point in time. So the best good part about it is most of the highest ranked FMCGs, you can say top five or top 10, they are looking at developing materials which are more sustainable, because
Right.
as I mentioned previously, the regulations are getting much tighter, because like for example in 2022, this year beginning July, we'll see a significant amount of control on single use plastics from the government of India. And likewise, many countries across the world are trying to implement this sort of regulation. And because of that, most of the FMCGs are looking to move to more sustainable options. As a result, it has been a little more convenient for us to get in touch with them and develop products for them. So the second part is, like I would say, is developing materials which are useful for them to actually put onto the shelf. So developing materials which have proper breathability, you have mechanical properties, you have water solubilities, you have sealing properties. So those kind of things need to be taken into consideration when you choose specific materials for any packaging application, especially flexible ones. So if you're looking at something like say a Ruffles pack, it won't be very easy to just throw it away another 8 months down the line. So if I can make something which can be composted at home, I would certainly be looking at a very good option here. So when I pitch that sort of an option in front of an FMCG, then it becomes a little more convenient for me to get them interested in the product.
Yeah.
And that's what we have been seeing
Thank you.
pretty
Thank you, Samir
positive.
and Swapnil. I request you to now summarize everything and just take one
Yeah.
question
So
from the
we will only take
audience.
one question from the audience. Yes.
Yeah.
So the question from the audience is put forth by Bhagyashri Mane. So it is for Dr. Milind. I mean, like, can you comment on pitch deck to seed funding?
I think pitch deck becomes the most important aspect, because it's the way of communicating what you're doing. So whatever you want to communicate, it has to come into your pitch deck. That's most important. There are of course standard formats available, of the pitch deck, that it should have clear idea about the team, it should have clear idea about the technology, the product.
Right.
Then it should have clear idea about the market spaces. What are you going to do? How are you going to achieve? And why do you require this money, and at what valuation? So typically these are the few points which are very standard of 7 to 8 slide presentation that you need to prepare for an investor kind of pitch. But second important thing that I would, again, on a philosophical basis, if you are passionate about your work, let the passion be displayed by the presentation that you are doing, because majority of the thing which happens is your body language and the way you present, because a lot of people at that age, that time when they are doing a seed investment, they do not have more understanding about your product or your market space as an investor. But what they are going to look at that time at seed investment is you as a person. Do you have the capability to execute that and do that? If yes, then they are ready to take the risk and take the bet to invest in you. So I think body language also makes a very, very important impact. So if you are
Right.
passionate, show that passion in your tech.
So thank you everyone. So this was really an eye opener for all of us. So we dived deep into the psyche of all our panelists and got to know their side of the story. I hope that this discussion has fueled some passion for entrepreneurship in all the students who are attending this. Like Ashish sir said, entrepreneurship is a vehicle to translate science into technology. Today, the wheels have been set in motion. With this, I thank you all for spending your valuable time with us. I will now hand over the session to Tanuja to give a vote of thanks. Over to you, Tanuja.
Thanks, Swapnil, for this exciting session. A very good afternoon to all. On behalf of NCL Tech team, it's my privilege to deliver a vote of thanks to all the dignitaries assembled here for NCL Tech Kickstart event. First of all, I would like to a special thank to Honorable Director CSIR NCL Dr. Ashish Lele for giving us his precious time. Followed by, I also wish to express my gratitude to the Head of Innovations and Director of NCL Venture Center, Dr. Premnath Venugopalan, for his constant support to our team to resume the NCL Tech Group. Then my sincerely thank to Dr. Smita Kale for her kind support to organize the event, and also we will look forward the same in the future activities. Then I would like to extend my heartfelt gratitude to all the panelists for sharing their stories, which really has inspired and encouraged us. Further, I may like to thank Dr. Vijay and Dr. Vidula for their technical support to execute this event. Finally, I would like to thank to all of you students and scientists for participating to this event. Now we are signing off by saying, come, keep your learning capillaries open. Unknowingly, you will absorb a lot. Please be a tech member and join us. Thank you, everyone. Have a great day.
Thank you, everyone.